Nepal is a small landlocked country, bordered by China to the north and India to the south. It is one of the least developed countries of the world, with over 40% of the population living below the poverty line. Nepal is usually associated with the snowy peaks of the high Himalayas, but the Madi area is a low-lying, swampy, jungly region south of the Chitwan National Park and close to the Indian border. It is one of the world's most scenic areas, but the 40,000 odd people who live there are entirely dependent on subsistence agriculture and completely lack modern facilities like electricity, telephones, and piped water supply. In the summer monsoon period, the area is subject to catastrophic flooding. Poverty and the dependence of the people on agriculture usually compel all Madi women to marry early and work in the rice fields. However, Shobha is an exception. Although an orphan and brought up by her grandmother, with the help of dedicated teachers, her own academic brilliance, and the generosity of Ozaid, she succeeded in journeying all the way from Madi to postgraduate study in nursing at Flinders University in Adelaide, South Australia. After reaching Adelaide, she and husband Krishna made friends with members of the Nepal-Australia Friendship Association. One of them, John, an anthropologist who had spent many years studying the people of Nepal, encouraged her in her ambition to one day return to help her people. To further this idea, he went to Nepal in 2003 to visit the Madi and returned deeply impressed by the potential of the region and the friendliness of the people.
Our rather motley film crew set off from Kathmandu one warm summer's day in May. Our first stop was Bharatpur. Then, with keen anticipation, we set off through the streets of Bharatpur, heading south toward the Chitwan National Park. At this point, we took the opportunity to get out and admire the magnificent views of the mighty Rapti River, which forms the northern border of the park. After our papers were checked, we were allowed to continue south through the park, which is about 30 kilometers wide at this point. The river and the surrounding countryside is scenically beautiful, but locals call it the sorrow of the Madi because it floods so frequently in the monsoon season and at these times sweeps away people, crops and villages. It also forms an impenetrable barrier to the outside world, isolating the Madi from the service centre of Bharatpur. The work of building the bridge to the Madi was started but never completed. For us, crossing the river meant going to a place where we might be cut off by a sudden flood. Almost as soon as we had settled in, a storm arrived, warning us of the approaching monsoon and the power of nature which places life in the Madi always at risk. The next day the storm had gone and we set off on our first mission, which was to take Shobha home to see her grandmother and fellow villagers. This meant pressing on south even deeper into the jungle, along bumpy tracks until only a line of distant hills separated us from the Indian province of Bihar. Travelling through this peaceful rural countryside, we soon arrived at Shobha's village of Sitalpur, where we received warm greetings from everyone. The next day, we went to Shoba's old school, Somersworth Technical School, and received a most memorable welcome from staff and students. I had no idea this had been planned and looked in awe at the endless lines of children bearing flowers and wreaths. Every time I glanced up, the line seemed to be getting longer, and I remember two boys coming up to me and showering me with something, but it was not till much later that I realised I had become an instant redhead. Nor was I particularly well practiced in the art of Nepalese folk dance, as you can see, but it didn't seem to matter. Instead of visiting Bhasantapur, we went in the opposite direction, southwards, plunging still deeper into the trackless jungle called the Champavare. Only four-wheel drive vehicles can negotiate the road into this rugged terrain, and it is miles from any shops or schools. This is where Shoba and her grandmother used to live. Here dwell the Gosri people, the untouchables of the Chitwan district, driven out from the rich arable land and into the forest verge on the fringes of settlement. As far as we know, no agencies of any kind have ever taken the trouble to consider their problems or their prospects for development. The title of this film, A Bridge to the Madi, was chosen because the lack of a bridge across the Raya River is a key factor in isolating the Madi people from the rest of Nepal. Of course, funding the bridge is far beyond our means. For us personally, bridge is also a metaphor for a link of friendship and mutual cooperation between us and the people of the Madi. This cooperation was initiated by Shoba when she came here to Adelaide, and it was returned in the form of our filmmaking expedition to Nepal. By viewing this film here today, you yourselves are part of the Bridge to the Madi.